Okay, back for the last final few minutes. I don't know if you are as excited to find out how Babe does in this competition as I am, but we shall see what happens. So, if you can remember yesterday, he has approached the sheep and he's given his password that the sheep from home so helpfully gave him. And now he has just asked them very nicely if they would follow his instructions. Let's see what happens. All this talk took quite a time, and the crowd and the judges and Mrs. Hoggett and her hundreds of thousands of fellow viewers began to feel that nothing else was going to happen, that the sheep were never going to move, that the whole thing was a stupid farce, a silly joke that had fallen flat. Only Hoggett, standing silent in the rain beside the sarsen stone, had complete confidence in the skills of the sheep pig. And suddenly, the miracle began to happen. Marching 2 by 2, as steady as guardsmen on the parade, the 10 sheep set off for the fetch gates, Babe a few paces behind them, silent, powerful, confident. Straight as a die they went towards the distant Hoggett, straight between the exact centre of the fetch gates, without a moment's hesitation, without deviating an inch from their unswerving course. Hoggett said nothing. He made no sign, gave no whistle, did not move as the sheep rounded him so closely as almost to brush his boots. And the fetch completed, set off for the driveway gates. Once again, their pace never changing, looking neither left nor to the right, keeping so tight a formation that you could have dropped a tablecloth over the lot, they passed through the precise middle of the driveway gates and turned as one animal to face the cross-drive gates. It was just the same here. The sheep passed through perfectly and wheeled for the shedding ring, while all the time judges' scorecards showed maximum points, and the crowd watched in a kind of hypnotised hush, whispering to one another for fear of breaking the spell. He's not put a foot wrong. Bang through the middle of every gate. Lovely steady pace. And the handler, he's not said a word, not even moved, just stood there leaning on his stick. Ah, but he'll have to move now. You're never going to tell me that pig can shed 4 sheep out of 10 on his own. The shedding ring was a circle, perhaps 40 yards in diameter, marked out by little heaps of sawdust, and into it the sheep walked, still calm, still collected, and stood waiting. Outside the circle, Babe waited, his eyes on Hoggett. The crowd waited. Mrs. Hoggett waited. Hundreds of thousands of viewers waited. Then, just as it seemed nothing more would happen, that the man had somehow lost control of the sheep pig, and the sheep pig had lost interest in the sheep, Farmer Hoggett raised his stick, and with it gave one sharp tap among the great sarsen stone, a tap that sounded like a pistol shot in the tense atmosphere. And at this signal, Babe walked gently into the circle and up to his sheep. "Beautifully done," he said to them quietly. "I can't tell you how grateful I am to you all. Now, if the 4 ladies with collars would kindly walk out of the ring when I give a grunt, I should be much obliged. Then, if you would all be so good enough to wait until my boss has walked across to the final collecting pen over there and opens its gate. All that remains for you to do is to pop in. Would you do that, please?" "Ah," they said softly. And as Babe gave one deep grunt, the 4 collared sheep detached themselves from their companions and calmly, unhurriedly walked out of the shedding ring. Unmoving, held by the magic of the moment, the crowd watched with no sound but a great sigh of amazement. No one could quite believe his eyes. No one seemed to notice that the wind had dropped and the rain had stopped. No one was surprised when a single shaft of sunshine suddenly came through a hole in the grey clouds and shone full upon the great sarsen stone. Slowly, with his long strides, Hoggett left it and walked to the little enclosure of hurdles, the final test of his sheep herding. He opened its gate and stood, silent, still, while the shed animals walked back into the ring to rejoin the rest. Then he nodded once at Babe. No more, and steadily, smartly, straightly, the 10 sheep, with the sheep pig at their heels, marched into the final pen, and Hoggett closed the gate. As he dropped the loop of rope over the hurdle stake, everyone could see the judge's marks. 100 out of 100, the perfect performance, never before reached by a man and dog in the whole history of sheepdog trials, and now achieved by man and pig, and everyone went mad. At home, Mrs. Hoggett erupted like a volcano into great lava flow of words, pouring them out towards 2 figures held by the camera, as though they were actually inside that box in the corner of her sitting room, cheering them, praising them, congratulating first and then the other, telling them how proud she was to hurry home, not to be late for supper, it was shepherd's pie. As for the crowd of spectators at the Grand Challenge Sheepdog Trials, they shouted and yelled and waved their arms and jumped about, while the astonished judges scratched their heads and the amazed competitors shook theirs in wondrous disbelief. "Marvellous! Marvellous!" bleated the 10-penned sheep, and from the back of an ancient Land Rover at the top of the car park, a tubby old black and white collie dog, her plumed tail wagging wildly, barked and barked and barked for joy. In all the hubbub of the noise and excitement, 2 figures stood silently side by side. Then Hoggett bent and gently scratched Babe between his great ears, uttered those words that every handler says to his working companion when the job is finally done. Perhaps no one heard the words, but if they did, there was no doubt the truth of them. "That'll do," said Farmer Hoggett to his sheep pig. "That'll do." And that is the end of our story. Thank you so much for listening so beautifully. I hope you enjoyed the book as much as I did. And I'll see you again. Have a good day.